Same floor, Rosalie, you talk.
Okay.
Can you call the roll call?
Sir. Councilman Drager.
Here.
Councilman Orzechowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Lois Thomas.
Here.
Okay, at this point, I would like to go ahead and ask Judge Velasquez to go ahead and swear in the new members to council. I was sworn in earlier this morning, but I'm going to participate in the swearing in once again for ceremonial purposes. Don, you want to join us?
Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. It may be a little bit difficult with lecture, but I would like to ask everybody to stand while we say the opening prayer. It'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear wise and loving Father, thank you on behalf of those who gathered here today. Thank you for your many abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings. For substance and friendship, thank you for our ability to be involved in useful work in the honor of being appreciated. Thank you for the freedom to embrace you. We ask that you give us this new counsel, the guidance, the wisdom to act according to your will and the patience of those that we serve. We ask that you bless this city as you bring everybody together for the good that you have in mind for us. Thank you for loving us from your boundless and gratitude nature. Amen. At this time, we have a flag over here. We need to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anybody that would like to make a public comment on the agenda items only? Hearing none, we're going to have the organization of the City Council. Before we get started in that, I'm going to change the order just very slightly and ask for a motion to appoint the City Solicitor.
Motion to appoint the City Solicitor.
Okay. That's fine.
A second?
Second.
Question on the motion, or currently trying to approve or appoint the generic Combastic law firm.
We have a motion and a second.
And a question.
Please.
Second.
Is there any questions about the?
Yes, it's more of a comment. I really do have a problem with this because this particular law firm, the last time they were here, they had a complete and total disregard of the safety can't say it myself.
Any other comments? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Gregor,
No.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilman Orzachowski,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas. Yes. And Mayor.
Yes. Motion carries. At this point, by law, the Director of the Department of Public Affairs is myself, it's the mayor. That's prescribed in the third class city code. The next one is, I'm going to ask for nominations for Director of Accounts and Finance. And I'd like to say something about that too. This is a very important position. It's typically known as the Vice President of Council. Should there something happen, then he would take over as acting organizer of the council. It also becomes the chief financial officer for the city. So with that, is there any nominations for this position?
I nominate Councilman Tony Orzachowski as Director of Accounts and Finance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Could you please call the roll?
Councilman Gregor,
Aye.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilwoman
Thomas.
Hess, and Councilman Orzachowski.
Yes.
And the mayor votes yes also. At this time, I'd like to ask for nominations for the Director of Public Safety.
Mayor, I'd like to make a nomination to Mr. John Nestor for Director of Public Safety.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Could you please call the roll?
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilman Orzachowski,
Yes.
Councilman Gregor,
Aye.
Councilwoman Thomas. Yes. And Mayor.
Yes. At this point, I'd like to ask for nominations for the Director of Public Safety.
Mayor, I'd like to make a nomination.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'd like to nominate.
Nominations for Director of Streets and Public Improvements.
Okay. I'd like to nominate for Director of Streets, Lois Thomas, please.
I'll second that.
I was waiting for you to ask if you had a second.
I'm sorry. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Councilman Gregor,
Aye.
Councilman Orzachowski,
Yes.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. I'd like to ask for nominations for the Director of Parks and Public Properties.
I'd like to nominate Councilman Donald Gregor for Director of Parks and Public Properties.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Please call the roll.
Councilman Orzachowski,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilman Gregor,
Aye.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
and Mayor Moser.
Yes. At this point, I'd like to set the schedule for council meetings as being the second and fourth Thursday of each month at 6:30 p.m. The agenda says 6 o'clock through talking to council, we decided to make that 6:30. The exception to that will be in the month of November. It's as opposed to being the fourth Thursday, which turns out to be Thanksgiving. We're going to do it the previous Monday, which I believe is the 21st of November. That is the only exception to the schedule that I saw. I also would like to call for a motion to and do this and have it advertised in the newspaper.
Honorable Mayor, motion to advertise a special meeting on January 5th at 6:30 p.m. at the Civic Center. Approve the 2022 budget as well.
Second.
Any questions?
Does that satisfy the 20 days?
The 20 days will be, we're
I
gonna,
thought the 20 days was January 6th.
it turns out it's the 15th.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Councilman Bricker,
Aye.
Councilman Chakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Moser.
Yes. So I guess I got a little bit out of order here. We still need a motion to set the schedule as I described it in the beginning.
Motion to set the schedule for the council meetings, second Thursday, the board would like.
Second.
Second Thursday and the fourth Thursday of each month, both at 6:30 p.m. To be advertised the meeting schedule in the Mon Valley Independent newspaper.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilman Chakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Bricker,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Yes. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes and talk about the direction the city is going from this point. First off, I want to thank everybody that voted, participated in the vote. That I feel quite honored to serve you. I've gone to great lengths to understand what the cities and citizens are looking for and so forth. And I'm here to serve first God and then secondly the city of Monessen. And that is where everyone will call it is. But you got to understand, the city government is probably much bigger, more important to most people even understand. It is the government that controls the roads that you drive to work on every morning when you get up and leave your house. It is the government that determines the garbage pickup. It's the government that provides the schools. It's the government that provides the public safety, provides the fire department. It provides all these things. They are the things that probably affect your life more than anything else that you have going on. And as such, we take great pride and great responsibility in guiding this government going forward. I'm not a politician, never have been, but I do ask that you give me a little bit of patience, that we will work together. We will, I've known politicians in the past. My direction is a little bit different than what most have done. That first off, I consider this to be day zero. Anything that's happened in this city in the past, happened in the past. Unless somebody here has a time machine and can change the past, there's no sense in arguing about it or blaming people or anything else. It simply presents a challenge for us to move forward. So as these opportunities come up, I ask council to work together to find solutions and to move forward from that point on. That there's absolutely no sense in causing anybody to think about something that occurred in the past. It just is not where we're not going to change anything there. I sat back and I looked from Brownsville to Rankin, all along the Mon River. We have all kinds of communities there. You have everywhere from Brownsville to Monessen, Charleroi, Denora, Rankin, the list just goes on and on. There's lots of communities along the Mon River. And if you look at it, there's really only two communities that, in my mind, are doing well. One of them happens to be California, but they have the university there. The university doesn't provide taxable income, but it does provide a lot of transient incomes for the students that are there. By the same token, they don't have a place to have breakfast in the morning either. So, it may have a nice community, but they don't have a lot of the infrastructure that some of the other places have. The other one that's kind of interesting is Monga Hill. I do a lot of work up at Monga Hill for the cameras that we do. And I went up and I talked to the police chief, I talked to the council members up there, and I asked them, what is it about Monga Hill that allows you to have the bustling community, the fully occupied retail space? It's just a very active community that's up there. It's kind of interesting too, because the response I got back was really a couple of things. One of which is, there's a lot of little things, but they all kind of said the same thing to me. That somebody, 20, 30, 40 years ago, they don't even know who it was or when it was, had a vision for Monessen, or for Boggy Hill. And they charted that vision. The point being is, for the last 30 or 40 years, they may have had minor disagreements between each other on some of the finer details, but they all agreed to follow that path. And if you're all working together, you're going to get somewhere. And I said, bingo, it's not the constant fight that you have in all the other communities along the way, looking up there. So I really want to try to do everything I can to eliminate any sort of fight. We need to work out our differences, hopefully in private, but when we come together, we need to have a uniform front and work together on it. Does anybody know who, well, let me restate this. I went to the newly elected officials meeting they had in Pittsburgh, and there was people from all over western Pennsylvania in all different roles, everything from mayor, city council, school boards. It was a very big mix, and a lot of people were involved with it. And it's kind of interesting talking to all the different people. They were all looking at the immediate problems that they had in all their communities. And I think it was one of the former mayors of Pittsburgh that really drove it home to me. He said, you know, you can take care of all those little problems, but unless you have a big vision for the area, you're not going to get anywhere. And he said, a big vision is at least 20 years out. You're not going to be in office in 20 years from now. But you need to, just like in Monkey Hill, establish a direction and encourage people to follow it, and it needs to be big. And I got to thinking, for Monessen, what is the vision? And it really comes down to something very simple. And you may think it's kind of foolish and outlandish, but it's simply equality and prosperity. That's really where it's at. Anybody know who Marito Nelson Jackson is? It's kind of interesting. I like to play in history a little bit. In 1903, in California, at an upscale men's club at the University of San Francisco, he made this crazy statement that he could drive across this country. Now, bear in mind, in 1903, nobody had driven across this country. There was about 200 miles of road from one coast to the other, a total of 200 miles. Driving across the country was just like saying, I'm going to go to Mars tomorrow. Nobody thought it was possible. They bet him, big bet, $50. He went and bought a brand new car. He hired a mechanic from the company that made the car. And with the help of his dog, they set course from San Francisco heading to New York City. Now think about this. No maps, no roads. You have wagon trails and you have railroads, and that's about it. There's telegraph stations along the way in certain places. So as you're going, you've got to do block and tackle and wedge yourself across the mud hole that you got stuck in, or you've got to stop and ask some farmer how to get from here to there. Which ways do I need to go? And some farmer may say, you know what? You're trying to drive across this country, you go ask my brother. He lives 12 miles down this way. Not because he didn't know which way to go, but he wanted his brother down there to see this crazy guy trying to drive across the country. Well, it turns out 61 days later, he arrived in downtown New York City. He was the very first person to ever drive a car across the country. 20 years later, there's now roads that run from coast to coast. There are now 20 million cars in the world with people traveling all over the country and migrating from one state to another. Point being is he had a vision. It was as crazy as equality and prosperity, but he got there. 20 years later, people said, yes, this works, and they did it. And I hope that I can do something even remotely similar to that. There is the school system. Everybody knows that the school system has issues. We have issues as a city. It is only through working together with the school system, hand in hand. If they're prosperous, we will be prosperous. If they're prosperous, it just works both ways. We both got to be it. If we fail, they're going to fail. If they fail, we fail. I have worked with the city and with Dr. Spazak. I I have been going to their meetings. I have a once-a-month meeting with her for lunch. And the purpose of this is to find a way to improve not only the relationship between us, but to improve both the city and the school jointly together. And that's something that we just got to move forward with. I went to the county commissioners, and I said, hey, I need about $5 million actually about $4 million to fix some of the blight problems that we have in Monessen. They were very receptive. I met with them several times, but they suggested that maybe Monessen is just way out there on the end of the county. We don't really have any way to fund it directly, but you need to think more regional, more bigger, think bigger life. So I hooked up with the mayor of Lenore, the mayor of Charleroi, and we formed a loose organization between the three of us to talk about life and to work together. This has some very profound implications of it. Every year we have football games between the different municipalities. Every year there's all kinds of violence that occurs. Perhaps the mayors are talking to each other. Perhaps that will filter down and we can calm down some of the people and understand that we're all in this Bond Valley together. We're all working together. Let's do things right. But above and beyond that, it opens up the avenue for additional counties to be involved. Now we've got the West Washington counties involved. We've got new senators and congressmen involved. We have congressmen and senators involved. They represent both sides of the river. To that end, I've also met with Senator Stefano, Representative Banzia. I met with the majority speaker of the Senate, Kim Ward, Senator Kim Ward. It's clear to me that right now today there is more money at play with the country than ever before in our lifetime. We're talking about trillions of dollars with infrastructure bills. We're talking about huge sums of money. It's also clear to me that the state, the county, the state has no mechanism to just hand Monessen $4 million. So I started looking around a little bit and saying, okay, there's got to be other ways to accomplish the same goal. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen today. To that end, there are other opportunities. We have a couple of people local. Latrina Hall is an example. She has a nonprofit. There's opportunity here to clean up the area. We just need to understand it better. I want to ask her to work with the community so that we all understand it and we can all visit it. There's people like Matt Curran that looks at low-cost housing. And it's very interesting because I've been to several meetings with him and was quite impressed with, first off, the connections he has. But it just is an example. He has a gentleman that's on the board that sits between Congress and HUD. So when Congress allocates these billions and billions of dollars, he's on the board that says, okay, this is how HUD's going to spend the money. These are the rules that he's going to work with. He comes to Monessen, he drives around Monessen, and he goes, wow, this is an eye-opener. He says, he's been all over this country. With Michigan, Chicago, Detroit, all the different places that have industry that is up and left. And he says, Monessen is what the president is talking about when he says build back better. That it is the opportunity. So we go to Linden Park just as an example. And he says, okay, this might be a place where we could fund some small low-cost homes. Well, if you look at things, please don't take this wrong. George Floyd was an amazing man. When he died, it was a tragedy that this country has never before experienced in the way that it experienced with that. But I have to imagine, if he had survived, what would have happened? Well, he had a prior record. He didn't have a lot of money. He was caught doing something illegal. He'd probably ended up in jail for a long time. Now turn that around. Suppose this is a white man that had his knee put on it and survived this. What would have happened then? Well, the guy would have mortgaged his house. He would have had lots of money to hire the best lawyers. He would have challenged the police department, and he would probably own the police department at this point. The point being is, it boils down to equality. Where this country is a long way from equal. A lot of the problem stems from generational wealth. Some of the minorities just simply don't have the same kind of generational wealth that the whites have, to be real honest. So when you start talking about low-cost homes, you're talking about going to a community and saying, here we have a group of people that are paying $800, $900 a month for rent, and rent's all they've ever done for their entire life. And paycheck to paycheck, just paying the rent. They've built up no generational wealth. If we can come up with a way that we can make those houses available such that they can buy those houses for say $400 or $500 a month, then first off they're going to have some additional cash that they can invest, that they can do something with, they can improve their life with. But more importantly, they can start building some of the same generational wealth that the rest of us enjoy. That they can start owning a home rather than renting a home and saving money at the same time. Well, we're sitting there talking about this whole concept. He's sitting there and he's looking around and he says, see that house over there? That's blighted. We're going to get rid of that house. See that house over there? It's blighted too. We'll get rid of it as well. But see that house over there? Somebody's living in that house. Let's figure out a way to make either grants or low-cost loans to that person so that he can improve his house as well and make it comparable to the new houses that we're going to build. In other words, he wants to go into a neighborhood and make the neighborhood better, not only with his houses, but with everybody in the surrounding area that's living in that neighborhood. So, quite honestly, these are things that really attract my attention. These are things that I'm going to ask him to come and present to each and all of you as well. I'm not going to do anything without council and your approval. And that's kind of where I'm going with this whole thing. We've got some hors d'oeuvres. There's some water, some drinks, some cookies that are out in the hallway. After we have our public comment, I'm going to invite everybody to stick around and get to talk to everybody. Come up and talk to us if you like. But I really look forward to working with everybody here. With that, does anybody have any public comment they'd like to make? Come on, guys. I've been attending council meetings for a long time. I've never seen it this way.
My name is Paul Sikovich. I live at 1552 Leeds Avenue, Monessen, PA. We just recently moved in this past July. Just welcomed a baby boy into the world here December 26th. As a new parent and a resident of Monessen, was looking forward to come out and see what everybody's talking about. In regards to your recommendation with regards to blight, would the city be able to, or will it even, to let's say back financing for people who are at that level of income level? To come out and buy those properties, since you're looking for that way of lowering their mortgage payments and getting their equity into the community. Is that not an opportunity?
Well, first off, what you're saying is absolutely something we'd like to do. But to be real honest, the city is in financial distress in a big way. The only way that we're going to be able to do this is through getting funding through some of the agencies. If you'll notice on my webpage, there is a agency that is looking at funding exactly what you're talking about, providing low-cost loans and grants for doing exactly what you're talking about. There is a tax forgiveness plan that was brought forth by our previous mayor. We're going to continue that. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask our city solicitor to get together with the school city solicitor and potentially even the county city solicitor and work up with a common agreement that satisfies all of them. One of the problems that we had before was, although the city was abolishing the taxes, the school was not necessarily quite so quick to do so. And that is not productive for anybody to end up with that situation. So, am I working with Dr. Stejak and with our city solicitor, working with that city solicitor, we will get to a new agreement in the very quick future, within just a matter of weeks, if not days, quick. I understand that there's a lot of people that have got a lot at stake in this, and I want to address that. I also want to make sure that the people understand what they're doing when they go into this. There's many that sign this agreement with the city and then immediately transfer it to another entity. But yet, the agreement that they signed with the city says they don't do that for a year. So we need to make sure that the people that are doing it are following the agreement that we can finish that forward, and that it's productive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the area. Absolutely. Anybody else? Come on, people.
Audit report. Done. Say it again.
I wish it was all right. And I know it was shiny, because you guys shine. But listen, but my question is, so I heard so much about you for years that I really believe that you need to have a vote audit and come up with a case. Because what it's just for. Because either you get tired of hearing what happened before this guy stole, that guy stole, so you, and it's much of chaos. So you need to cut your rest. And I was awful. But better, that's not for the better than you did. That's nothing.
One of the things that has been talked about is I really am wanting to insist that City Council consider this to be day zero, that we're going forward. But by the same token, I understand that thinking, and I understand that need. That I do believe that you will find that somebody in the very near future will probably set up a GoFundMe page to establish the audit to do exactly what you're talking about. As far as I'm concerned, that will be done by somebody, but not as a city council function, but rather as an independent issue. We'll get the same answer, but as I said, city council needs to keep an eye on the future. Anybody else?
Leanne Snyder, 26 Knox Avenue. The only question I have is because, like, my husband, my son, they're all firefighters. And I just want to address what his issue is as far as the solicitor. Because if there's anything bad against the fire department that you were saying,
Ask the solicitor why.
that's what I would like. And I think everybody should know because fire, it doesn't matter, like, if my family isn't even in it anymore, like, they're important. And I think they need to be upheld.
You want to address that or go to?
That discussion involved an issue that happened several years prior to that. It can't be discussed publicly because of the content of what that topic concerns.
Named Anthony Snyder, 26 Knox Avenue. I think it should be brought to attention because you was hired from our city to be our solicitor. I think the city of Monessen, the residents of Monessen, should know what was said about the fire department. Fire department does a lot for the city of Monessen. Delmore Heppel, he does a whole lot for the city of Monessen, okay? We risk our lives. I'm not in it no more, but we risk our lives 24/7. Come on, help the city of Monessen, okay? I don't see city of Monessen Police Department does a good job. But I think if you could brought attention before you was hired as a city,
This is no disrespect to any of the firefighters. You guys, I grew up here, obviously. You guys have done great work forever, right? This involved an investigation about city personnel. It just cannot be discussed publicly.
I feel different. It's your problem.
Are there any other comments to be made?
So it's not really a question, more of a statement. My name is Julian. I live here in Monessen. I'm a community member. Yeah, cool with that. The statement is that you mentioned equality and wanting to do things that better the community, and I think everyone on council and everyone who lives in the community needs to remember that no matter, even if you don't live here, if you have business here, if you work here, if you have family who lives here, everyone is still a part of that community because you have relationships here and that makes you a part of the community. I think that a lot of, right now I think that the word equality might mean different things to different people, and equality is equal rights for all people. So it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you serve on city council, if you're the mayor, it doesn't matter what your job is. If you are in the community, then you're in the community of Monessen. And our job as a whole is to make this community better, safer for little kids and the kids who are in school and even us ourselves, because no one wants to walk around feeling like they're being treated differently or getting discriminated against. So basically, I'm just saying that if we're talking about equal rights, then we need to remember what equality actually is, and remember that no matter what position you serve in serving the city, everyone is a member of this community, and everyone needs to be treated fairly no matter what. That's it.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you clarifying that a little bit. To take that just one step further, I do not believe that you can have equality unless you have across-the-board prosperity. The same prosperity that one person enjoys needs to be enjoyed by all. It doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, what color you are, what religion you are, what sex you are. Equality is equality. And that be made clear. In order to attain that, we've got to have prosperity. Makes no sense to have one person working paycheck to paycheck and barely able to provide for his family, and another person that has all abundance. And we've got to figure out a way to make it prosperous for everybody. You can't have one without the other. Any other comments?
Yeah, my name is Steve Gates. I live at 517 Monessen. I just have a question. The council meetings, is this going to be a record thing down here at the Civic Center? Or are they going to go back to City Hall?
I think that's a function of how many people are going to be coming. Right now, there's no way that this number of people are going to fit into the existing City Hall. As we move forward, we're going to look at possibly getting somebody in to assess what kind of damage there is to the old annex building that we used to be into. Find out if there's any remediation that's started and what that would cost. That's a little bit bigger. I'm not saying it's big enough for everything. This is one of the few assets that the city has that holds lots of people. If necessary, we can work up something with the school. It's entirely up to the people, how many people are going to be coming, and we will find a way to accommodate them. That's all I can promise you.
Okay, because this might be petty to some people, but I didn't know it until Saturday when on the video from the other meeting. I sponsor 2 basketball teams that play down here. My practices were supposed to be here. I paid for this gym for 3 hours, and with no notice, no nothing, it just moved my kids out. There's another team that's coming in, 30 kids are supposed to be here practicing for me, and it just got moved with no notice.
You received no notice at all?
I found out about it when no one watched the video.
They just canceled you out?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I did talk to Julia, but that's neither here nor there. I do apologize. We will refund your money. We will make it as available to you in some other way. I will work my best to make it up to you. But I do believe that the city business, the city council meeting was critical that we have that. This is the only facility the city has to accommodate this number of people.
I can understand the city, but like I said, this was rented months before by the basketball league. We paid for that time, and I think there should be more time to organize it, to not interfere with things that are going on here.
I understand, but
I thought you told us at the meeting that had been resolved.
I thought it was.
Well, who was supposed to resolve this?
Well, perhaps me, but I probably not. You can throw stones, but this is the only place that we have. You have also on Wednesday, sir? Are you using this on Wednesday? Do you have a reserve for Wednesday? Julie, can you help me with that to make sure that we have a third path for Wednesday?
Correct. They have the basketball, they have gym every day of the week. And I stated that to you in the email that I sent you, and you said that you needed to make sure you had it anyway. So I told you, and I told Amy, who was supposed to let her coaches know, and I'm sorry about that, sir, but I did tell you that basketball was here every day of the week, and you said you need to make sure that you have it.
Right.
So they'd have it. So if you're gonna, and basketball, they already paid. Amy Wade runs it, they already paid the rec board.
Well, we can refund that fee, or we can do it another time.
Okay, but, yeah, so that's up to you, but if you keep, like there was kids who just walked in here to come and practice, and they had no notice because they've been using this for 2 months now, every single day. So that would be up to you then to call and talk to her and call the coaches then, because they have this gym reserved. And I didn't know until last week that you wanted to use this, because you didn't call me, you called the old city administrator. So I had no knowledge, and I did inform you that the gym was already in use, and you said you needed it anyway. So I'm sorry about that also, but it was trying to be taken care of.
The sunshine laws in this state are pretty explicit, that anybody that wants to attend has to be able to attend. Anybody that wants to come has to be allowed to come in. Quite honestly, the new city hall that we have downtown, I think that our fire marshal set the occupancy somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 people. Any more than that, you're affecting the exits. It's a serious problem. Right now, today, the only assets that the city owns are this city hall, the garages, which are not suitable for city meeting. To that end, I will work with you to make sure that we get that notified for Wednesday as well. After Wednesday, I don't know, it's a function of how many people want to come. If we get it down to a reasonable number and it doesn't cost too much, we will move into the annex building where we can see probably in the neighborhood of about 40 to 50 people, which is not too much different than what we have here today. That will be soon.
I think you're too close to the microphone.
This acoustics control is pretty bad too.
I have a question to the solicitor. Is it just to clarify something? Is it that you cannot talk openly, or is the law or rule that you can't share what the the retired fireman said about discussing that matter?
It deals with city personnel, it cannot be discussed. That's the law. I cannot. I cannot.
Is that about law?
Yes. Yes. It's dealt with city personnel. Council, myself, anybody sitting up here cannot put that business out in the public.
He is correct.
Yes.
He is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No need to thank me.
Any other comments? That being said, very good. Mr. Seven?
Honorable Mayor, motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 6:49 p.m.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilman Baker,
Aye.
Councilman Nestor,
Aye.
Councilman Thompson,
Yes.
Councilman Thomas, and Mayor Moser.
Yes.